Hi, I'm Joe Lenton and welcome to Original Art Photography. In this video we're going to be having a look at doing some portrait retouching, and we'll look at a variety of techniques including a couple of different frequency separation techniques and some dodging and burning and sharpening using the high pass filter as well. So the first thing is to check out your portrait and see what might need to be done. So face, most important area first of all then, so let's have a quick look around. We've got very little in terms of blemishes, just a few that we might want to get rid of. With these beauty spots here, we might want to get rid of a few, but perhaps just keep one on the cheek. We can enhance a little bit more this lovely bone structure, so we can bring that out with a bit more contouring. These areas under the eyes here are a little bit dark, so I would lighten those up. The eyes will benefit also from being lightened up a bit. And down here, what else have we got? And the lips a little bit. The teeth aren't very visible, but we might still have a quick go and see if we can lighten them up a tiny little bit. Okay, so we can see roughly what needs doing. And the first thing that I want to do is deal with sort of the major issues with the skin, and we'll do that using a frequency separation technique, which basically involves separating out your color information from your detail information. So if you press Control or Command J twice, you'll get two copies of your background layer. If you want to, you can rename these color and detail or low and high frequency. It's entirely up to you. If you can remember what they are, you don't have to change the names at all. Now, the bottom layer, we're going to turn that into our color layer. So just switch the top layer off so you can see it all right. We're going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And the idea with this is just to blur it enough so that these details disappear, so that you lose the texture, but not so that it all goes to mush like that. So we're just blurring it enough so that the colours start to blend into one another. That'll do, I think. Right, now the next layer, we go to Image, Apply Image, and for this we need it to be set. The layer should be at layer 1 that it's taking the information from. Click the invert box here, and scale is at 2, blending mode is add. Now if you click OK, you'll then need to change the blending mode of this layer to linear light. Now it looks like it did at the beginning, and just to prove that, if we group those two new layers together, so whilst you're still selecting that one, hold down Shift and click layer 1, and then press Control or Command G, that groups them together. You've got group 1 like that. If we turn on and off group 1, you'll see no change in your image at the moment, because we haven't done anything on those layers, but we've just separated out that data, and when it's recombined, you can see it just looks like the same as before. So layer 1 is going to be our color layer, we've said, so that's where we'll try and deal with these sort of slightly shadowy areas like this. The next layer above that, the one that looks like a grey box in there, is going to be dealing with the details. So it's up to you which way round you want to do this, but you can zoom in and have a little look and see what we've got. So we can quickly get rid of that one there. You can use a variety of different tools when you're doing this. The important thing is to make sure that you're set to current layer only. You do not want to be on current and below or all layers. The very purpose of frequency separation is that we can deal with each bit separately, rather than doing them all at once. So make sure that you're only editing that particular layer. Now you can use the healing brush, where you can sample from another area and brush the texture over, and that can work quite nicely. That's just dealing with the texture. That's not going to be taking any of the actual color from different places, so it makes it easier if you're sampling from somewhere which is not exactly the same color as the area that you want to deal with. You can borrow that texture without taking the color with it, whereas other times you do risk the color going as well, which can make it much more fiddly to edit something. So if we just go around sampling and covering up those layers of blemishes that we don't particularly want on our final image. So just sample. I tend to look for similar areas of skin that I want to sample, and use those to fix the problem areas. As I said, there's not an awful lot of problem areas on this particular image to fit anyway. Sometimes this can work also for the lips, although we might have to deal with that differently. Let's just have a little look and see what we get in there. Actually, that's not too bad. We can fix that reasonably well there. Okay, so that's looking reasonably all right. The next sort of major area really is this bit under the eyes, and we've got some sort of fairly strong texture here and here, although a lot of that is dark, so we need to do a little bit of both of our layers of frequency separation here really. So if we sample off to the side there and brush a bit of that over there, you can see we've lost some of that texture from underneath there. That's been softened by using the texture from further down on her cheek. We'll do a similar sort of thing over here, but we've still got quite a bit of that dark colour in the way, which we'll want to get rid of. Okay, so you can see the sort of before and after so far. We've nearly got rid of that, but not completely. So we go to our other layer, which is our colour layer, and you often you want to use more of these sort of clone stamp for this. If you try sampling with this layer here, it can work. In fact, that's not a bad job at all. But just to show you, you may want to go for the clone stamp, keep the opacity in that fairly low, find yourself the sort of colour that you're going to be after, which is probably around about here somewhere, and just brush a bit of that in. Like that, a little bit more. Okay, and then similarly over this side. Okay, let's just pull back and have a little look, see how that's looking. So there's our before and there's the after. You can see that there's still a little bit in here and in here, so it's not quite there yet. Let's have a look, and then we might combine it. Okay, so that's beginning to come together a bit better now overall. Let's pull out. Sometimes when you're in too close or too long, you can sort of lose sight of the wood for the tree, so to speak. So coming out a little bit further can sometimes be a little bit helpful to enable you to just see what's going on and bringing those areas back in, so you can get a nicer sort of overall effect. Okay. Right. That'll do for now. I mean, there's it can be polished up further still, obviously, but you get the idea that fairly quickly you can deal with most of the major sort of blemishes and some of those tricky dark spots under the eyes there. That isn't quite perfect in there. As I say, we might have a little look at that later on, but for the moment that will do. There's just another little bit here. That's probably going to be on the detail one that I want to deal with that. Let's just have a look. There we go. That's better. Right. Okay, so that's our first step with our frequency separation there, which we've used to sort out some of the issues with the skin. There is another sort of frequency separation idea that you can use as well, and I'll sometimes use it at this point after I've just done the first one. So I'll do a stamp all layer, which is Control, Alt and Shift, or Command, Option and Shift, and then press E. And that gives you a copy of everything you've got into one new layer, which we can then do various different things with. So it's Control, Alt, Shift, E, or Command, Option, Shift and E, and that gives you a copy of all your layers, and that's the one that you can see on my screen here is this layer 2. Now what we're going to do with that is, and this will look very odd to begin with, but don't panic, Control I to invert it. Yep, that does look a bit odd. It looks like a negative. If we then click down to Overlay, still not looking terribly great, but bear with me. Then go to Filter and Convert for Smart Filters. This will enable us to use filters on it, but such that we can go back and change the settings of those filters in case we don't quite get it right first time. So it is now converted to a smart object, which has this little mark in the corner here to show you that it is a smart object. The first filter that you are going to go for is the high pass filter. Now what we want to do, take yourself in quite close, what you want to do is take the slider to the point where you're just starting to get rid of any other unwanted areas of texture in the image. So you see, the further to the right we bring it, the more it's going to blur it, and the further to the left, the more we keep those details. So bring that across. About 3 or 4 is more than enough. Okay. As I say, we can go back and we can change this because it's a smart filter. You see where it says high pass there? We can double click on that and it'll let us go back and change that at any time to whatever other setting we might want it to be. The next thing we need to do is go to our filter again, and this time we go to blur, Gaussian blur, and again this is going to be a smart filter, so it is going to be editable. Now with this we control the radius to enable us to bring back detail in the skin texture, but at the same time keeping some of that sort of softening effect if we want to. So it tends to be in the region of about half of what you've done with your high pass. So you can then go OK with that. You don't want this to affect absolutely everything. This is something that you then brush in as an effect afterwards. Let me just turn that layer off so you can see what we've done. So we've gone from that to that. So it's a slight sort of softening of the skin, and again we can adjust those 2 filters that we've done before. But if we just, for the moment, if we put a mask on there, and to create a black mask you hold down Alt or Option and click on the mask, choose the brush tool, press B for brush, and what we're going to do is brush white paint in. So make sure that you've got your white paint selected down here, and I would suggest you don't want to necessarily go to full opacity, but try it initially around about 50-60% and see how that's going to be, and then you can paint some of this effect in to areas where you might want it, so such as in here, and you can see the effect compared to the 2 sides. It is fairly subtle, and I guess on the video you may not have a lot of definition to see that all in detail yourselves on there. So I suggest the best thing to do is just to get on and try it, and then you'll be able to see for yourself what sort of results you're getting with it. I'm going to go for a bit more opacity there while I go over this area, so I don't have to brush it several times. Okay, nearly there. So it's not something you have to do. This is getting a little bit more into the details of retouching to go for a slightly better, more polished look to an image. It's not something you'd necessarily do if you were taking just sort of family photos or photos that you'd be using for a press release or something like that, but it's the sort of thing that if you're doing something that's a bit more on the fashion side of things or beauty, that you might use these techniques to make your subject look a little bit better, just enhancing them overall. Right, okay, so there we go, that's all been added in. Now if I just turn that off and on again, just zoom in a bit closer so you might have a chance of actually seeing something on your screens at home. It is quite subtle, but it does do something, believe me. Let's take us in a little bit nearer. You might be able to see it more clearly around sort of the eyes area there. That's off, and then on. See, it's just sort of softening things a little bit, changing the texture of the skin, giving it a little bit more of a glow. So that's the frequency separation stage of the operation completed. If you want to see completely back to what we've had at the beginning, you can hold down Alt or Option and click on the little eye next to your background layer, and that's the original image, and that's where we've taken it to so far with our editing. Okay, so that's the first stage of just dealing with the skin with a couple of different frequency separation techniques. In the next video we're going to be looking at the next steps of using dodge and burn for the eyes and also on the skin, and looking at some sharpening as well. So thank you for watching, and hope you will watch the next video as well. Thank you. Bye.